India and Canada share an admirable diplomatic relationship. Indian diplomats within the Canadian political sphere play a pivotal role in fostering positive ties between both nations. The Indian Deputy High Commission located in Ottawa represents Indian interests in Canada. The mission and its staff are responsible for promoting bilateral relations between the two countries. In this regard, Indian diplomats in Canada work closely with members of the cabinet, diplomats from other nations, and civic and business organizations. Diplomats typically represent India during global events in Canada, such as G7 and G20 meetings, and other United Nations conferences. Indian diplomats also handle diplomatic requests from citizens, like visa applications and other related inquiries, as well as facilitate communications between the two countries. Indian diplomats in Canada assume a wide array of roles to represent Indian interests, build goodwill, and strengthen diplomatic relations between India and Canada. Working hand in hand with officers from embassies and high commissions around the world, Indian diplomats maintain peace and order while managing diplomatic relations between them. Indian diplomats also assist in implementing agreements and treaties between India and Canada, and ensure that both nations are well represented during international forums. Indian diplomats remain committed to promoting the interests of the two countries on both political and economic fronts. By doing so, they advance the cause of better diplomatic relations between Canada and India, furthering mutual understanding and cooperation between both nations. Indian diplomats also provide relevant information about India to Canadians, from its political structures to its culture, and help bridge the gap between Indian and Canadian society. Indian diplomats extend the Indian diaspora in Canada, developing links between the two countries in various fields, including education, trade, science, and culture. Indian diplomats in Canada create numerous programs to assist local Indian communities, from language courses to freedom of worship, and the promotion of Indian-Canadian culture. One of the primary roles of Indian diplomats is to ensure the interests and rights of Canadians of Indian origin are taken into consideration when policy decisions are made. Indian diplomats facilitate travel in both directions, issuing visas and work permits, facilitating exchanges between the two nations, and encouraging mutual understanding of their respective cultures. To ensure easy travel between the two countries, Indian diplomats strive to reduce the number of visa-related applications and restrictions as much as possible. Indian diplomats also provide legal counsel and assistance to Indian citizens in Canada, and they promote legal literacy amongst other Indian Canadians, oftentimes making use of the Indian community's resources to spread information. Working alongside other branches of the Indian government, Indian diplomats in Canada organize and participate in social, educational, and cultural events for the local Indian population. Through these events, Indian diplomats can create cohesion and cooperation between the two nations and form positive working relationships with Canadian citizens. Indian diplomats also engage members of the Canadian government and society to promote Indian interests and values, ranging from yoga to food to culture. Indian diplomats aid in expanding the Indo-Canadian business network by developing economic and trade ties between India and Canada. Indian diplomats in Canada often liaise with the business sector to foster better understanding of India's companies and the products and services India has to offer. Indian diplomats also strive to create business opportunities for Indian companies in Canada, as well as for Canadian companies in India. They also oversee and promote investments by introducing various incentives, such as tax holidays and reduced customs charges. The imminent free trade agreement between India and Canada will further strengthen economic ties between both nations.